My name is Sean Morgan. I work with Weaponization Watch, and we are tracking the stories of Americans who have had the government weaponized against them. I'm here with Theresa and John Kirk. Theresa, tell me about the story of your son and how it all started.
So July 4th, 2019, my son and his then girlfriend were corrections officers and they had just gotten done their shift. They came home from work. It was roughly 10 o'clock at night. They had gotten home. They got out of their car. They proceeded to the apartment. There was a child setting off fireworks at the bottom of the stairwell. And they were landing in the window to their apartment, and his girlfriend kicked one of the fireworks away from the stairs, and they both proceeded upstairs. My son was getting his dog out of the cage, and she started to walk down the stairs with her dog when she saw the child setting off another firework. So she took her dog back into the house to my son, and she proceeded down the stairs and started to yell at the child, and then the mother heard her screaming at the child, and the mother came down, was starting to walk down the other end of the courtyard. And they got into a screaming match as they were really getting closer to each other. My son at this point was proceeding down the stairs with his dog. And he was trying to break it up, and the other woman was still coming at them. So now she's turned her attention towards my son, and she has her hand raised in the air. My son cannot see what she has in her hand. My son is licensed to carry. He did have his firearm on him. He pulled it and put it to his chest and says, "Back up, back up." He's military. He's corrections officers. He's been trained. Um, as she got closer and he saw what it was, which was a glass fishbowl that she had a drink in, he reholstered his weapon. Then she proceeded, now she's close enough to him, she proceeded to hit him with the bowl in his head. And in doing so, he went down from being hit, and going down, he hit her in the mouth with his forehead. Um, one of the children ran to the apartment and got her boyfriend. So there's verbal arguments going on, back and forth, just arguing, trying to break it up. My son's backing up, and she continues to go closer. The boyfriend comes walking down the hallway. Now, I mean, down the walk path. At this point, everything's being recorded now. One of the neighbors had their phone out and they're now recording it. And it starts from Mr. Wheeler walking down the pathway towards my son. You can see him taking his glasses off, handing them to the child, going directly at my son, hitting him in the face, and then throwing his entire body into my son, and then wrapping his arm around my son's back and grabbing for his weapon. The holster that his weapon was in was not a lock holster. It was a pressure tension holster. So my son was trained to keep the cup of his hand on the weapon as a security measure so nobody could pull it out. As soon as he felt Mr. Wheeler grab the butt of the gun, my son pulled the weapon and he fired once into Mr. Wheeler. Um, Unfortunately, he thought he hit him in the abdomen, but due to his position and the size of Mr. Wheeler, the bullet went directly through his collarbone and into his heart. And Mr. Wheeler stumbled back, to say a good 50 feet, maybe more. Um, and he was talking, and then he just laid down under the tree. My son attempted to do CPR on him. They would not allow my son to go near him. My son did call 911 himself, and he told them that he had just shot somebody in self-defense. Once he heard the police coming towards him, he started to walk towards the police. Um, he was told by the officers not to say anything. He was told to stay quiet. He didn't fight. He didn't argue. He laid down, got arrested. Um, he was eventually charged with second-degree murder, felony menacing, um, and another charge. I apologize. I forget what the charge was. They charged him with felony menacing because Miss Cotton claimed that he pointed the gun in her face, which he never did. So he was arrested and he was charged. We got him out and we were going through the court proceedings, and approximately the second or third court proceeding, we were approached by a woman. Her name is Kalina Jokel. And she proceeded to identify herself as a former inmate of the Woman Denver Correctional Facility, where my son was a corrections officer. And she had stated that she is now a paralegal and she's working for an attorney, Selvoy Fillerup. And he wanted to take on my son's case. My son was being represented by a public defender at this time. So I left the decision up to Scott. Kalina had made it clear she knows Scott. This isn't something he would do. This isn't his demeanor. He's not the kind of person that they're making him out to be. Scott has helped many of the women in the facility. He was the only one there that was civil to them. He personally helped her on a couple of occasions in regards to her attempting to commit suicide or harm herself. He stepped in and saved her life. So now Mr. Fillerup has the case and COVID kicks in. So the case is being kicked down the road. Mr. Fillerup is telling us he's filing all of these motions and proceedings and all these documents. We have to take his word for it because we know none the wiser. During all this, my son is home on house arrest. He has an ankle monitor. He's allowed to work. We're paying Mr. Fillerup, per the agreement. Finally, it comes down to now we are going in front of the judge and being told it's time for trial. We're getting ready for trial. Courts are opening back up. All right, not a problem. We'll do what we got to do. Mr. Fillerup calls my son and says to him, when we go to court tomorrow, you have to tell the judge that you can no longer afford to pay me, that you need a public defender. My son said, what? He said, yeah, I have too many personal things going on in my life. I can't defend you right now. This is too big of a case for me to take on. My son said, I'm not lying for you. This isn't happening. Like, no, I'm not doing it. So when they went to court, my son told the judge exactly what happened. Long story short, Mr. Fillerup was disbarred. He lost his license because apparently there's been multiple complaints against him. And he was forced to repay my son approximately $10,000 that was paid to him. Excuse me. Now my son is faced with a trial and he doesn't have an attorney and he doesn't have the funds to pay for an attorney. So he applied for a public defender. He was denied. He went back in front of the judge and the judge told him, he gave him a list of slow pay or no pay attorneys and told him to contact them, find one, do what you got to do. So we went through this extensive list, called every attorney on the list. They were either deceased, disbarred, or no longer with the firm. We created a spreadsheet, and when it was time for him to go back to court, he gave it to the judge, and the judge said, that's not my problem. We're not waiting any longer. This family has waited long enough. We're now in 2021. This happened in 2019. We're going to trial. Even if you have to defend yourself, figure it out. I did extensive research, called practically every law firm in the state of Colorado to find somebody to help him. We came across Mr. Bo Worthington. Approximately 6 months before trial, Mr. Worthington agreed to take his case, but it was very difficult because it was 6 months before trial. He really didn't have everything he needed to prepare. All of the witnesses for my son are gone. They're moved. We can't find them. They were, if I'm not mistaken, they were missionaries and they moved. Now that it's a holiday, they're traveling, doing their religious work. Mr. Worthington pled with the courts for an extension, for continuations, for guidance from the court, for assistance. The court denied multiple times, refused anything. And Mr. Worthington explained to the judge, like, he's indigent, he can't afford me, he can't pay me, he needs public defender. I think it was 4 separate applications for public defender. All 4 were denied. And the public defender's office even stated that he can't afford us, but he's just above their financial guidelines, that they can't give it to him. But the judge could order them to do so. Judge refused to do so. Said it wasn't his problem. 30 days before the trial date, the judge granted the state funds for a private investigator. 30 days. That's all he had, 30 days. So within those 30 days, we were not able to find the witnesses for my son who did speak up at the time. They've all moved, they've gone. We're 3 years down the road. Once again, Mr. Worthington requested the judge to move it down, and the judge denied it. We went to trial. Multiple people lied on stand. What they said in their interview with the police was not what they said in the courtroom. We were not allowed to bring up Mr. Wheeler's previous arrest records. The judge had said, he's not on trial, you are. His previous history has nothing to do with this, which it's got a lot to do with it. He was previously incarcerated in a couple different states. He's got a lengthy arrest record. They tried to make him out to be Daddy of the Year. Unfortunately, it was proven in his arrest records that, he had restraining orders against the mothers of his children. Well, they had it against him and his children. He wasn't allowed to see them. But the judge played into all that. The original judge he had has moved at this point. He's on a new seat, and this is the new judge who was doing all this. And this new judge is the one who's refusing to do anything to assist and abide by the law. So the trial goes on. My son does have a defense expert speak for him, which was actually a military gentleman. He spoke on the training that my son had, the stance that he had, how he would have defended himself, and everything that the gentleman stated was exactly what my son had done. Unfortunately, my son was found guilty. We have some questions in regards to the jury. There was issues where, because it's a week before Christmas, 2 weeks before Christmas, comments were made, how long is this going to take? My family's going on vacation. I can't be stuck here. There was another young lady who had an issue, a medical issue, and was refusing to share a restroom with the rest of the jurors. She caused a big ruckus that went on for 2 days. So finally, it was more of like a hurry up and get this over with. I got to go home kind of deal when it came to the jury. Unfortunately, they found my son guilty. And then we went to the sentencing. The judge looked at Mr. Wheeler's mother and said to her, "How old is your son?" She said, 37 years. The judge turned to my son and said to him, "You are now given 37 years in prison. You took 37 years and now you're going to get 37 years." Said to my son, "You took a gun to a fist fight. You were a coward." My son was going to walk his dog. He was not going to a fist fight. The entire video was not allowed to be played. They only played snippets of the video. You can clearly hear on the video Miss Cotton making a comment, "Kill that effing white cop." That wasn't played. None of it. It wasn't a fair trial by any means.
They weren't allowed to say self-defense.
No, we weren't allowed to say self-defense. He wasn't allowed to. Judge said, "No, I don't want to hear it. Time for that's over." Sorry, I'm trying to hold it together.
That's okay. I mean, this is a good time for me to take a break here and just question. Many years ago, when I was growing up, this would have been considered a textbook self-defense. In those days, law enforcement officers' words were taken over the words of criminals. If race was brought up during something, then it would be a race-based crime. And yet everything's been flipped nowadays. Why do you think the judge, the jury, and anyone else in the system had it out for your son? Why do you think that was?
Um, the state of Colorado is an extremely left-wing liberal state, extremely left-wing. And unfortunately, this was also at the height of George Floyd. When the family stood up to speak, the judge sat on the edge of his seat, held on to every word, made comments like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That's terrible. That's horrible." When I stood up to speak, the judge turned his back sideways to me and proceeded to type on his computer as if I wasn't even there. And when I was done, he turned back and looked at me and says, "Oh, you're done?" It's abuse of power.
Yeah.
He just didn't care. He wanted to make a number. He wanted to make it look good.
Right. So at this point, where do you stand? What kind of remedy are you hoping and praying for?
I'm either praying to.
Well, they denied
They denied his appeals.
appeal.
His appellate attorney is currently filing his 35C next week for reduction in sentence. So we're looking to get a new trial, a fair trial, with all the evidence presented, all the records presented, his record presented, his previous arrest record, my son's defense, have time to find the people who actually spoke up for him. Bring in the question, the witnesses for the prosecutor. We weren't allowed to question them. As in, like, they're, I don't know, how do you say it? Like,
Yeah.
we couldn't question like their standing. Like,
We couldn't even question they were saying that he was the first one that walked down the steps and started the argument, which was false, which they wouldn't allow in court either. They would only
Right.
allow their
You needed
testimony.
time to find the witnesses that had moved and so
Yes.
forth to be able to get that eyewitness testimony.
yeah,
So that's your path forward. Any
I'd like to
other?
get a new trial, a pardon, or get a sentence reduction, a realistic sentence.
Yeah,
He's never been arrested a day in his life.
right,
Never. He worked for Habitat for Humanity. He was on the student council in an all boys Catholic school. He was the school mascot. He was never in trouble a day in his life. He was
Military.
in the military, the National Guard. And you're going to throw 37 years at him. In the meantime, somebody who's committed multiple offenses and obviously had problems with law enforcement because he's gotten in trouble with law enforcement before, resisting arrest, fleeing and evading. Like, the criminal is now the victim.
right. Well, this is exactly the type of case that Weaponization Watch is interested in advocating for, and see all avenues possible. Like you said, sentence reduction, retrial, pardon, everything's on the table as an option, and we're going to do everything we can to explore those options with you. So thank you so much for sharing your story, John. Anything else you wanted to add?
Uh, they're still trying to stop him from getting his records
Yeah.
from the courts, from
Um,
stenographer.
the
The judge
appellate
refused.
attorney had sent him paperwork to file for his 35C, which was ineffectiveness of counsel. And in order for him to fill that out properly, he had to request a copy of his court records, the transcripts, and he had sent that request in at the court cost. The judge denied it and said no, he doesn't need it.
The
Right.
same judge.
The same judge, he denied it, and
He's trying to block him every way he
every
can.
way he can. And the 35B for request for reduction is going to go back in front of the same judge.
Right. Yeah, every opportunity they had to deny him his constitutional rights, they did it, and I think you have a really good case for a retrial or for a pardon. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your son's story, and we'll do everything we can to advocate for him. Thank you.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it, Sean. Thank you for taking the time.
You bet.